Yeah, what's up? I'm Shine YGO, and this is my early prediction tier list for what the meta is going to be like going into Supreme Darkness. So, preparation for like YCSs like Orlando and Birmingham and such. Right, let's get started. I've got my five tiers here, strongest decks. These are just ones that are going to be dominating the meta and are going to see the most representation in top cut. Solid decks are going to take up less of Top Cut, but they're still good enough to demand respect from players in like the side deck and such. Needs a strong pilot. These are decks that have a high skill ceiling, and it really takes a good player to like bring out the deck's potential. Rogue decks. Rogue decks are decks that like maybe one or two will slip in, but are generally not recommended if you want to like see major success and seek help. These decks have no chance, and if you are still playing them, seek help or move on to another one. It's okay. We're here for you. Alright? In no particular order, let's just get this out of the way. The strongest deck in the game is Fiendsmith Ryziel. If you have been hiding under a rock, it's the new archetype that just spams rank 4s. And add that with the recursion, the grind game, the everything that Fiendsmith is. And that's Fiendsmith Ryziel. A lot of these decks are going to have Fiendsmith packages because Fiendsmith is a problem this format. And I will say it's a problem because it's ruining deck diversity by making it so that Fiendsmith engines feel mandatory to pretty much play anything at top level. And I don't like that, especially with how expensive it is. So yeah, Fiends of Malice also gets to be up here. The two new decks from Crossover Breakers are really strong, and couple that with the power of Fiendsmith, it just makes them so much better. The pure versions are also put up here. I think Ryziel's better than Malice, but I think that the Fiendsmith puts Malice over the edge, making it better than Pure. Pure is a lot weaker in terms of board. It relies a lot on you having the non-engine to stop your opponent, because one board breaker kind of collapses your entire deck, and D-barrier is a lot more effective on you. So that's why I'd put it below Fiends with Malice. Let's see here. I think that let's get some rogue decks in. So I think that Evil Hero is rogue. It's a new deck, so if you're playing it, it's like cool, flashy, but it's maybe like one or two diehard fans will make it good, but I do not have very high hopes for it. New support looks cool, but it doesn't really hold a candle to the other really strong decks of the format. Uh, let's go with Labyrinth. Labyrinth, solid deck. The best example of a solid deck. It pretty much has all the answers for a format in terms of like the trap cards like Math Cannon and Daruma, but it requires you to see them for the specific matchups, and their grind game needs to be able to basically be on par with Fiendsmith, which it is, but only after like turn 3 or 4. Fiendsmith grind game is a lot more immediate. You can see the effects of it, like especially because you can just summon back the Link 1 again and again and again, while Labyrinth does more, but takes a longer time. Yubel is another one of the solid decks. Uh, they did not nerf this deck properly. One Phantom of Yubel is a hit, but putting back Opening of the Spirit Gates gave them back 2 starters. That was not okay. If you nerf a deck, you don't need to go back immediately on it. Like, Opening of Spirit Gates was fine at 1, so it's looking like a very good deck um, in the Supreme Darkness format, and I won't be surprised if it takes up a significant amount of top cut. Next to, of course, the Big Four and the mysterious fifth that will be here soon. Let's do another new deck. White Forest Azamina is our first needs a strong pilot. It's very good. It has a lot of potential. Azamina, Elzat of the White Forest, is a very nice bridge of the two like engines. It lost its Snake Eye half, which I think having access to Snake Eye was a big thing for this deck. It's a big thing in the OCG. Not having it is rough. But I still think that with a strong pilot and with like a dedicated base, it can definitely do better. I don't think going second is this deck's main weakness, and you need to be able to go second, and you need to be able to just grind turn after turn. This format, it's just gonna be like the crossover breakers format after Anaheim, where basically decks don't really win on turn one or two anymore. It's mostly like turn five, turn four. That's when, because grind games are very important now. It's a longer game than it was before, which I think is a good thing compared to like Snake Eye format where you die turn one. And speaking of dying, let's go over the Tenpai. Tenpai Fiendsmith, I think, is solid. It still needs to be worked out a bit, I think, before it becomes the dominant version. But I think it's pretty good. Being able to add that engine in order to facilitate better going first plays, it seems like a very good idea. And especially because the Bystials synergize so well, and Bystials are very good because Fiendsmith is running around everywhere. I think this deck has potential, and maybe might be able to make it higher on the list. But I think that the fifth best deck in the game is Tenpai Dragon Pure. This deck is so good because number one, you can't really dedicate slots to Tenpai anymore because the deck is nerfed. So people aren't dedicating as much to it, and it's not real. Like people before were like playing thrust into threatening role, which people are not doing anymore. So I think that Tenpai is good. It lost the ability to play Shifter for the most part. But since most decks aren't playing Shifter anyway, it becomes better. Also, playing like more non-engine than even these crossover breakers decks makes it great. And finally, the biggest thing, kill power is actually a lot harder this format. Killing with these decks takes time. Tenpai puts you on a clock, and it's kind of the only deck that really does that, except like Yubel. But Tenpai, I think, is better than Yubel at this moment. I think if I see more from Yubel, more people playing it, it can go up here. But from what I've seen, Tenpai being able to put you on a clock compared to every other deck is a skill that is unique, and that's why it's the fifth best deck. And if you can't tell, strongest decks is basically just the top five. I don't think anything else really goes in this tier. Let's have some fun. What are the decks you need to seek help for? Runic Stun. It was okay in one format. Let it go. Just let it go. It's not worth playing. And it's unfun too. Another one. Pearly. The deck isn't good. Just, just. It was good before, but not anymore. He's cute. I'll give it that. It's cute. It's just not there. It's just not there. You move on. Move on. Get help. I won't be rating all the decks on this list, by the way. Some of them aren't really worth mentioning. Like, I'm not mentioning Snake Eye Fiendsmith because like I'd have to make a separate tier for please, for the love of God, quit the game. If you're still playing this deck, it's over. The ban list handled you. It's over. Wrap it up. Another deck for Seek Help will be Flow. Deck is unfun. I'm joking. With Henry back, I'm joking. Don't worry. It's fairly fun. but it's not that good. Being a shifter just isn't that common in the format, and isn't even really that good in the format because Ryzeal doesn't really care about it, and neither does Malice. So shifter decks aren't the best right now. More in for the record, if your deck is in Seek Help, doesn't mean it's worse than Rogue. I just personally think you should move on from the deck. Speaking of which, nah, I'm joking. I think Voiceless Voice is in Rogue. It's the top of Rogue though. I love this deck. I played it when it came out, and it's not good. It's a bricky mess, and I apologize to the Voiceless enjoyers, including myself. The deck sucks. It's not gonna get better. We need new support from Konami. Let's see here. Centurion, I'm gonna put in Rogue as well. It just kind of just completely rolls over to Ryzeal. X to Ryzeal being able to go summon, chain 1, chain 2, Mario Logic, target the field spell is kind of just game over completely. Unless you've made the full board. But if you're making the full board versus Ryzeal, then they did not draw any hand traps and they're pushing through. So I think it was good when it could play around Charmies, but since all the best decks tend to play around Charmies anyway, it just doesn't really have that many striking features. Right, Rescue Ace, Seek Help. This deck, it's let it go. Konami did you dirty. Let it go. Airlifted to 3 was like charity work because they knew that they were going to slaughter original. Deck is just not worth it. I apologize. Let's get on. Let's get away from the doom and gloom. Memento is it's very strong. I think it is. Yeah, here. I think it's better than that. It hard loses to a lot more of like the blowouts, but since Shifter isn't that present in the format anymore, Memento doesn't have to worry about that as much, which is good. D barrier sucks, mind you. D barrier does suck, but it's not the worst thing in the world because if you play Fiendsmith anyway, which I'm kind of including Pure and Fiendsmith together because they're basically like the same tier, pretty much. But I think it's a really good deck. It takes a lot of time and effort, but I don't know what you're doing, and neither will your opponents if you're playing this deck. It's he's playing the OCG as well, so definitely a good deck that I would consider learning. I'll be using this for basically the Musketeer Fiendsmith because it's basically pure. I think it needs a strong pilot. It basically, when it was before Ryzeal Malice and everything, it was basically one of its kind where it would run like 23 hand traps and play a Fiendsmith engine. Now, these decks just do it better completely. So I think if you're really good with the decks, you can definitely make it to like top cut, but you need to be good at these decks because why would you play these decks when you can just play these top 5? That's the sad reality if it needs a strong pilot. Yeah. Same goes for Cash Fiendsmith. I think it's below Asmina White Forest. It's definitely worse than the Musketeer because it doesn't flow as smoothly. Like, not all of your secondary engine are like Fiends in Kashtira. Mermail also goes up here. It's a strong deck. No, actually, it's better here. It's a strong deck, don't get me wrong, but losing more to blowouts like Charmies sucks this format because every deck pretty much plays Charmies, and you need a line around them, otherwise you kind of lose. Unless you have like Omega Power, and losing to Droll also hinders this deck a lot. But I still think that it can make some slots in Top Cut if people decide to play it. Chimera, it's Rogue. This is the Fiendsmith version, by the way. Pure Chimera does not exist. It's decent, but no one plays this deck. I think it'll see more resurgence now that like Shifter isn't as present, but just no one really plays this deck. It's just kind of mid, and losing to hand traps and Charmies is not fun. So I think it's here. It's Fire King, seek help. I love this deck is cool, and I've been looking at Kushtira Fire King, but it's cope. It's just cope. The bridge is cool, and like Dogmatika bridge is cool, but this deck just can't compete. It just can't compete. Original was a heavy blow. Alright. Ritual Beast is also in needs a strong pilot. Charmies are also the death of this deck. If you just any Charmy kind of just destroys them, and you can't Protoss as freely anymore because when you could just blank all fire and you knew your opponent was on Snake Eye, it was great. Now you have to basically. I think the best one is to call Light because it hits Fiendsmith, and in case of playing Pure Ryzeal. But at the same time, if they're playing Malice, you can just lose off of that. So it needs a strong pilot. And Ritual Beast is one of the hardest decks in the game, so I think it deserves to be here. Alright, only a couple of them left. Unchained is Rogue. If you're playing this deck, just play Yubel. Yubel's just strictly better. And I don't really think any of these other ones really need to be mentioned too much. Let's go over the new archetype, Mitsurugi. I think this deck is Rogue, unfortunately. It it is quite cool, and I like the concept of it being tributed, if it's like the tribute aspect. But when you compare it to the insane power level of like all of these decks, I can't really put it above. However, this isn't the best version of the deck. This is Ryzeal Mitsurugi. Do I? Nah, it goes here. It's being able to abuse King King of the Feral Imps, especially because Twins of the Eclipse is such a good card that comes out to support Ryzeal. It's very good and it definitely has potential. This is by far the most fun looking of the Ryzeal variants, and I really hope this becomes the best variant because it's such a cool concept, and we have not had a reptile meta archetype for like I think ever. So I'm looking forward to more of this, and we need more Mitsurugi support. One more wave and the deck will be perfect. And out of all these decks, finally, I'll put Runic for Runic for hire is also in Seek Help. This is Runic for hire Sprite, by the way, like the best variant of this sort of deck. It's bad. It was good for like one WCQ and then it just fell off. It's just not that good. Yeah, this is my tier list. If you notice, there isn't really that many changes compared to the regular format because Supreme Darkness is more a support set than an actual like changing the meta, like proper like set with a bunch of decks that will have an impact. It's definitely bigger support for Ryzeal. Sons of the Eclipse is one of the best cards in the set. And because of the brand new Link 4, it makes Fiendsmith climbing a lot better. So, yeah, here's my list. And make sure to like and subscribe for more Yu-Gi-Oh content. And that'll be me, Shine Wagio, signing off. Peace out, guys.